And we do so not only asking for those from Cuba and Bahamas in the north, to Venezuela, to Suriname and Guyana in the south, to Belize in the west and the Eastern Caribbean to come together to express our commitment to each other creatively through food and fashion and music and dance and art and sculpture, and talk of philosophy, talk of religion, talk of who we are, talk of the future. I ask us to recognize that we celebrate this year our resilience, and that we do so not only asking the people of the Caribbean to come, but the people from whom we came, here in Africa, in India, in China, and the continent to which we went, in particular, in Central America and Latin America. This is our moment to show the world that we were not simply apostrophes to the history and the modern history of humanity, but that truly we are the ones who can level the playing field and to create the opportunities that will allow the world to see people, hear people, and feel people, and to value the planet and its biodiversity at the very time when it is greatest in crisis. Let us remove the scars of history and be firm craftsmen of our fate, recognizing that the only people who can stop us now are we, but ourselves. We have to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery and to build the future that our people want of us, and to give them that pride that is theirs. And we must do so in the spirit and with the results of ADWA. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Prime Minister of Barbados, Chair of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, for a global call for the African Union theme of year 2025. It is my distinct honor to welcome now His Excellency John Mahama, the President of the Republic of Ghana, as the African Union leader on advancing the cause of justice and payment of reparations to Africans. Your Excellency.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Chairman, President of Angola, Your Excellency, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Your Excellency, Chairperson of the African Union, and in the interest of time, may I just proceed on established protocol and say, Your Excellencies, my colleague, heads of state, distinguished citizens. It's a privilege to address this historic launch of the African Union theme of the year 2025, and I quote, "Justice for Africans and the people of African descent through reparations," unquote. This moment marks a significant milestone in our collective pursuit of justice, equity, and the long overdue recognition of the historical injustices that continue to shape the lives of Africans and the people of Africa. This decision underscores our collective commitment to addressing the historical injustices and their lingering consequences that have impacted generations of Africans and people of African descent. It aligns with our broader struggle for liberation, unity, and socio-economic empowerment as enshrined in Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, a vision for an integrated, peaceful, and prosperous continent. Your Excellencies, The transatlantic slave trade was one of the most heinous crimes against humanity, spanning about 400 years and forcibly displacing more than 12.5 million Africans. It is estimated that at least 2 million of our compatriots perished during the Middle Passage alone. The legacy of this brutal system, along with colonialism, apartheid, genocide, and neo-colonial exploitation, have left deep and enduring scars on the fabric of our societies. Today, the descendants of enslaved Africans continue to face economic disparities, social inequality, systemic discrimination, and racial prejudices. Addressing these challenges requires more than just acknowledging them. It demands action. The economic impact of colonialism on Africa has been profound. Historical estimates suggest that the continent lost trillions of dollars in both human and material resources due to colonial exploitation. The forced extraction of wealth, which included minerals, cash crops, and labor, deprived African nations of the capital and infrastructure necessary for sustainable development. Colonial policies intentionally stifled industrial growth, leading to a dependency on foreign economies that persists even till today. The systemic plundering of Africa's natural resources, coupled with the disruption of traditional governance structures, has resulted in lasting consequences, worsening poverty and the development and inequality throughout the continent. In November 2023, Ghana hosted the Accra Reparations Conference, a historic gathering that brought together African heads of state, scholars, and representatives of the global African diaspora to advance the reparations movement. This conference reaffirmed the urgent need for comprehensive reparatory justice and laid the foundation for stronger advocacy and policy frameworks. It provided a platform for dialogue on the financial, cultural, and social restitution necessary to address the enduring effects of slavery and colonialism. The outcomes of this conference served as a guiding pillar for our collective efforts moving forward. The 2025 AU theme of the year is therefore a call to galvanize efforts towards reparatory justice. It is an appeal to ensure that the dignity, rights, and well-being of Africans and their descendants are fully restored. Reparations involves not only financial compensation, but also restitution, rehabilitation, and guarantees of non-repetition for the abuse of fellow human beings. It is also about truth-telling, historical accountability, and the restoration of agency to those who have been marginalized for centuries. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the call for reparations, while including, extends beyond financial redress to encompass addressing structural inequalities, ensuring educational and economic opportunities, reclaiming cultural heritage, and amplifying the voice of Africa and the diaspora communities on the global stage. Achieving justice requires multi-stakeholder collaboration. Today's pre-launch event serves as a crucial platform for concertedly rolling out constructive consultation, dialogue, and partnership. We welcome the participation of AU member states, regional economic communities, the global African diaspora, civil society organizations, academia, the private sector, and international partners in this transformative endeavor. The African Union Commission, in collaboration with key partners, have developed a concept note and revised the roadmap to guide the implementation of the reparations agenda. This initiative will further the aspirations of Agenda 2063, fostering an Africa that is self-reliant, just, and inclusive. Through this launch, we seek to, among other things, mobilize political will and commitment towards reparatory justice and racial healing, present and discuss the roadmap for implementing the 2025 theme of the year, foster partnerships among AU member states, diaspora communities, and like-minded international allies, engage stakeholders in resource mobilization efforts to support reparations initiatives across Africa, elevate awareness and advocacy to ensure sustained engagement beyond 2025, encourage dialogue and knowledge sharing among experts, policymakers, historians, and affected communities, and finally, to ensure an end to the culture of silence and denial on racism and colonialism. Your Excellency, the work ahead requires a unified voice, a clear strategy, and unyielding commitment. Today, we reaffirm our commitment to working together to develop policies and frameworks that will support reparations efforts across Africa and beyond. We must continue to advocate for stronger legal and institutional mechanisms at the national, regional, and international levels to ensure that reparatory justice for the historical trauma inflicted on global Africa is not just a conversation, but a reality. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, I wish to express Ghana's unwavering support for this critical initiative. Let us seize this moment with the determination it deserves as we work together towards a future that is fair, that is just, and equitable for all Africans and people of African descent, and by natural extension, the uplifting of all humanity. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Allow me now, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to move to the family photo while calling the rest of the respective delegates to remain in their seats. Remain in their seats, please, to ensure the smooth organization of the family photo. Allow me this time to call Excellencies and Honorable Heads of States and delegates in an organized manner to proceed to the photo session location. Allow me now to start by calling distinguished presidents from Liberia, Libya, Madagascar, and Malawi. Please follow our protocol team to the family photo. There is only one door open for the family photo, which is gate number 5. Please, protocol teams, lead our leaders to the family photo. And then the second row, please. Distinguished presidents and heads of states from Cape Verde, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Comoros, Congo, Cote d'Ivoire, Democratic Republic of Congo, Djibouti, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Swatini, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Kenya, and Lesotho. Please follow our protocol team to the family photo. Excellencies, presidents and heads of delegations from Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Africa, South Sudan, Tanzania, Togo, Tunisia, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Algeria, Benin, Botswana, and Burundi. Please follow our protocol team to the photo session location. Honorable presidents and heads of delegations from Mauritania, Mauritius, Morocco, Mozambique, Namibia, Nigeria, Rwanda, Sahrawi Republic, Sao Tome and Principe, Senegal, Seychelles, please follow our protocol team. Excellency Prime Minister of Barbados. They went? Okay. Okay, with that, I thank you all for your time and I wish you fruitful deliberations. They didn't wait. Nobody wait. Yes. They will change. I have my team.
Your Excellency, President Mohammed Ould, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished ministers, ambassadors, diplomats, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ethiopia, the cradle of Pan-Africanism and a proud champion of African unity and freedom. It is an honor to stand before you today as we reflect on the immense potential we hold not just as individual nations, but as a united and dynamic continent. In a world marked by rapid change and multiple challenges, we find ourselves at a crossroads of uncertainty and opportunity. This moment calls upon us to strengthen our collective resolve, embrace resilience, and foster unity across Africa. The theme for this year's Assembly calls on us to heal the scars of historical injustice and overcome lingering trauma that has long hindered our progress. The demand for reparations is not about charity or financial aid. It is a call for justice. It seeks to restore the dignity of millions and heal the deep scars of poverty, inequality, and discrimination. It demands an end to the systematic exploitation of our wealth, resources, and opportunities. It also calls for a transformative process that acknowledges past harms and takes bold steps to right the wrongs caused upon us, upon society across the continent. Thank you. Thank you. Most importantly, the call for reparations requires not just words, but concrete actions to affirm the equal worth of every human being. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to achieve lasting peace, justice, and prosperity, we must rise above the geopolitical tensions and the historical divisions imposed upon us by colonial borders. By fostering solidarity among all of our nations and embracing a shared destiny, we can pool our resources and talents to unlock our continent's full potential. Africa's cultural, ethnic, and linguistic diversity is a source of pride and strength upon which we must build inclusive governance and equitable development. Conflict resolution, diplomacy, and peace building must remain at the heart of our efforts. By championing African solutions to African challenges, we can secure lasting peace and stability. Let us celebrate our achievements in politics, science, economics, and arts. Strategic initiatives such as the African Continental Free Trade Area give us the tools to boost intra-Africa trade, reduce external dependency, and achieve self-reliance. With Africa's large and dynamic use, abundant natural resources, and growing technological innovations, we have all the means to ensure sustainable growth. The rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, particularly generative AI, offers unprecedented opportunities to transform our economies and societies. By collaborating in AI, fintech, renewable energy, and mobile technology, we can address shared challenges such as climate change, infrastructure gaps, and public health crisis. Africa's rich and diverse data sets are essential for training robust and inclusive AI models. This highlights the importance of African representation in shaping future technologies. However, as we embrace these advancements, it's essential to protect our data sovereignty, prevent digital exploitation, and develop homegrown AI solutions that reflect African values and contexts. As our data sets grow, so must our capacity to harness them for local and global good. When used responsibly, AI can be a powerful tool in conflict prevention, transparent governance, and inclusive development. Africa must actively participate in the global technology race to ensure we are competitive players in the evolving digital landscape, while also ensuring we benefit equitably from this technological revolution. Furthermore, Africa's voice on global issues must grow stronger, ensuring that we have a say in shaping governance frameworks and other much-needed reforms in the global order. By empowering grassroots movements, youth networks, and educational programs focused on digital literacy and technological innovation, we can inspire the next generation. This will ensure Africa stands not just as a beneficiary of a global advancement, but as a key contributor in shaping the future of humanity. Excellencies, the opportunities before us are immense. Ethiopia is determined to prosper, guided by a vision of vibrant democracy, sustainable economic growth, rich cultural heritage, social progress, and a deep commitment to environmental regeneration. To realize this goal, we have laid out a pragmatic roadmap rooted in the transformative principles of Madamar. Madamar, an Amharic term loosely translated as synergy, is our guiding philosophy. It is a homegrown ideology that promotes prosperity, unity, sovereignty, security, and national dignity. At its core, Madamar encourages social and economic advancement, celebrates diversity, and nurtures a spirit of community grounded in Ethiopia's rich culture, spirituality, and values. Reflecting on the progress of the past 5 years and building on the vision of Madamar, Ethiopia has made remarkable strides. Despite inheriting a nation deeply divided along ethnic lines, burdened by substantial debt, and facing numerous internal challenges, we have moved forward with determination. At the same time, we navigated a complex and ever-changing regional and international landscape. Yet, through resilience and cooperation, we continue to move closer to the realization of our shared vision of prosperity. Our achievements speak for themselves. Allow me to share a few highlights. We have reformed our political system, transforming into an inclusive multi-party framework that reflects the diversity of our nation. To deepen these reforms and foster cohesion, reconciliation, and peace, we are undertaking a national dialogue. On the economic front, we have built a resilient and diverse economy. Over the past 5 years, we have doubled our cultivated land, increasing crop production to nearly 700 million quintals, with the wheat accounting for 40% of this total. These efforts have strengthened food security and driven rural development. Today, Ethiopia is the largest wheat producer in Africa. Thank you. Through collective efforts, we have reduced external debt by over 50%, double both GDP and GDP per capita, and tripled government revenue in 5 years, with an 8.1% growth reported in the most recent fiscal year. Across the country, our major cities are evolving into dynamic, culturally rich, and sustainable hubs. In education, we have established 40,000 kindergartens and primary schools to boost early childhood education. Additionally, we have launched a program to train 5 million coders to strengthen our digital economy. Furthermore, we strive to honor our heritage by restoring national sites, developing tourist destinations, and reclaiming cultural artifacts, fulfilling our duty as the guardians of our nation's treasures. These accomplishments reflect the unwavering spirit and resilience of the Ethiopian people and underscore our firm commitment to advancing Ethiopia's future. With its focus on unity, cooperation, innovation, and shared progress, Maddamar can serve as a guiding framework for our Pan-African agenda. By embracing its principles, we can forge a path toward a more just, equitable, and prosperous future for all Africans. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let us march forward with determination, harnessing the limitless potential of our continent and its people. The time is now to claim our future, build a legacy of equality and prosperity, and secure dignity for all. Let us be the generation that unites the continent and our diaspora in a shared vision of justice, prosperity, and peace. To conclude, I thank our outgoing chairperson, President Mohammed Ould, for his leadership and representing our organization on the global stage. Allow me to also warmly congratulate our newly chairperson, President Joao Lorenzo, and wish him success during his tenure. I would also like to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed for his exemplary leadership as chairperson of the African Union Commission over the past 8 years. Throughout his tenure, His Excellency Musa Faki has shown unwavering commitment to Africa's development, peace, and integration, significantly strengthening the African Union's role in addressing the continent's challenge. I also extend my sincere thanks to him for being a steadfast friend of Ethiopia, supporting us not only during our times of success, but also in our moments of difficulty. Thank you, my brother. As we bid farewell to His Excellency Musa Faki, it is with great pleasure that I extend a warm welcome to our incoming chairperson of the African Union Commission here in Ethiopia. I am confident that under his leadership, we will continue to make great strides toward achieving our collective goals. I wish him every success during his mandate. Thank you for your attention, and I wish us all a fruitful summit. God bless Ethiopia. God bless Africa. I thank you.
Excellency Mr. Mohammed Sheikh Dal Ghazwani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, current Chairman of the African Union, Excellency Honorable Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Republic of Ethiopia, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government and Heads of Delegation, Excellency Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, President of the State of Palestine, my friend, dear that is the Prime Minister of Barbados, Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Honorable Ministers, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, former Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Madam Deputy Chairperson, Commissioners, Secretaries General, Executive Secretaries of the Regional Economic Communities and Regional Mechanisms, Chief Executives of the Specialized Institutions of the African Union, Heads of Diplomatic Mission, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with both a great honor and a great pleasure that I'm addressing myself to you for the last time in my capacity as the chairperson of the African Union Commission. Since we are at the beginning of 2025, I want to present to you, Excellencies, to your families and your peoples on behalf of the African Union, my best wishes for health, prosperity and success. I would like also to express my sincere gratitude to the chairman with whom I have worked successively over the past 8 years. I'm here referring in the order of their chairmanship: Alpha Conde, Paul Kagame, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Cyril Ramaphosa, Antoine Felix Tshisekedi, Macky Sall, Azali Assoumani, and Mohammed Ould Sheikh Al Ghazwani. At this moment of remembrance, I cannot forget President Idriss Déby Itno. May his soul rest in peace, who, as a convinced Pan-Africanist, had the initiative presenting my candidature to head the Commission, and who invested himself unstintingly for such a destiny for me. His tragic death was my most atrocious pain of these 2 terms. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 8 years have elapsed since my election at the end of January 2017 as chairperson of the African Union Commission. At this moment, loaded with history, meanings and symbols, I would like to fulfill the moral duty of presenting to you the broad outlines of the outcome of these 2 terms. Thanks to this journey, I have deeply imbued myself with both what makes the greatness and the influence of our continent, of our continental organization, as well as the various constraints and limitations that have hindered the rhythm of our pace. I have crisscrossed this beautiful and fantastic continent. I feel deeply proud, having visited at least once all the 55 member states of our union. The opportunity that this moment affords is historical and unique. I will try to fulfill the dual obligation of reporting and also raising some questions about some issues, being well aware that we must not absolutely abuse of your precious time. A consolidated report of our achievements and an annual report have been distributed to you in accordance with our regulations. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the rapid and intense geopolitical upheavals that have characterized the international context during my 2 terms of office have both violent and destabilizing manifestations. The sudden deterioration of the health situation following the outbreak of COVID-19 was unfortunately accompanied by major shocks and profound economic and diplomatic turbulence. For Africa, this resulted in an increase in the debt burden, a decline in public and private investment flows, violence and the prevalence of some African conflicts, the collapse of Pan-Africanism and the chains of African solidarity, manifestations of the obsolescence of African institutions, external appetites in Africa, obvious deficiencies in governance and leadership in Africa and even in the world, and the crisis of multilateralism after the Second World War, and so on, and so on. The Russia-Ukraine war, which began in February 2022, further darkened this picture, announcing a global geopolitical reconfiguration. A split emerged that resurrected a form of bipolarity, which in political imaginations brings to mind the theoretically outdated reality of the Cold War. Deep uncertainties about the sustainability of peace and international cooperation have poisoned the minds, darkened the conscience, and reinforced the pessimism, selfishness, and mercantile pragmatism. The consequences of this war deeply affected Africa, which imported most of its cereal consumption and agricultural inputs from these 2 countries, that is Russia and Ukraine. The specter of food and health insecurity hung over many of our countries, many of which continue to suffer from their structural fragilities. Excellency, Mr. Chairman, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, in the Middle East, the brotherly people of Palestine suffered and continues to suffer one of the worst injustices in the history of mankind, the horrible and unjust war which completely destroyed everything in Gaza and Palestine, particularly in Gaza, to deprive this people of its fundamental rights to independence, peace, existence, and to life, in an indescribable shame for the whole of mankind. In spite of all this, these valiant Palestinian people remained stoic, and the African Union remained firmly by the side of the Palestinian people. I want to express to our brother Abu Mazen Mahmoud Ramadan our solidarity. This apocalyptic landscape that Palestine, the Gaza Strip, and its population, in particularly after more than a year of war, destroying all forms of life and property, continues to unfold in almost total silence of the powers of the world, except for the call by some for the systematic deportation of Palestinians from their lands. It is really adding insult to injury. This unprecedented tragedy weighs heavily despite the ceasefire and the release of hostages and prisoners facilitated by Qatar, Egypt, and the USA on the universal conscience and deeply questions our humanity. The stronghold of increased, stifling, dehumanized globalization does not leave Africa outside the hegemonic struggles that are taking place far from its land. On the contrary, the continent is suffering from the excesses and fragmentations reflected in proximity conflicts, barely veiled support from external powers, from the warring parties on the continent, the expansion of terrorism and violent extremism, the continuation of the devastating war in the Sudan, in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, the divisions of Libya, whose reconciliation charter was signed and adopted yesterday, and I would like to congratulate you, President Sassou Nguesso. Tensions of all kinds in the Sahel, in the Lake Chad Basin, in the Gulf of Guinea, in Mozambique, in the Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes region are another part of the unsmoldering string of African crises. The flow of political, economic, environmental refugees and other internally displaced persons is exacerbating the already fragile security, food and health situation in many member states. It is this seriously degraded global and regional context that we have been facing over the past 8 years of the development of our action. Excellency, Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, ladies and gentlemen, the institutional reform of our Union, which began in 2017, aimed at establishing the optimal condition to guarantee the efficient pursuit of the programs included in our strategic doctrinal guiding compass Agenda 2063 for the purpose of better resistance to the challenges that were identified. In this regard, the reconfiguration of the leadership, a staff performance evaluation process, closer cooperative relationship between the African Union and the regional economic communities and the regional mechanisms enacted by a new protocol, the institutionalization of a coordination summit dedicated to integration, the establishment of the technical groups R10 and N15, responsible to ensuring the quality of human resources recruited and compliance with the golden rules of budgetary, financial and accounting management principles of the African Union have been the salient features of this reform. And but is without any complacency, we'll have a new institutional map of the Union. I'm here stressing three of these organs: the Pan-African Parliament, the Peace and Security Council, and the Permanent Representatives Committee. The overall movement of the reform, with its shadows and lights, confirms its relevance and its necessary progressive nature to be deployed over the long term. It is a requirement for the perpetual adaptation of the structures of our Union to the developments that characterize the world. I would like to thank President Paul Kagame and President William Ruto for their remarkable efforts to move this reform forward. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, an assessment of the first 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063, covering the period 2014 to 2023, reveals the sectoral progress made in our march towards building the Africa that we want. It is crucial to learn the real lesson and make the appropriate subsequent adjustments. In the field of health, it is a holistic approach translated on the ground into actions crowned with success. With the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, Africa CDC established itself as the most effective instrument in the fight of all diseases. The worrying issue of health financing continues to be a source of concern for us. Two mechanisms for financing universal health coverage and combating malnutrition on the continent have been designed. Thanks to the African Veterinary Vaccine Center, PANVAC, whose new vaccine production laboratory was inaugurated in February 2024, significant progress has been made in the areas of livestock, animal health, and socio-economic development. The African Medicines Agency, AMA, has begun setting up its headquarters in Kigali and its activities on the launching pad. The traditional medicine has benefited from the development of two 10-year plans of action, the last one running from 2025 to 2035. The field of education has been driven by the desire to design a new educational system according to the requirements of a world where the major challenge has now become competition around scientific and technological innovation, and now by artificial intelligence. It is in line with this spirit that diverse and complementary strategies have been developed, notably during the Nouakchott Conference in 2024, initiated by the current chairman, Mauritania, in cooperation with the African Union Commission and other partners, including UNICEF and UNESCO in particular. The centrality of gender and youth issues have been affirmed. The special envoys for women and youth have established themselves well in the institutional universe of the leadership of the organization. Throughout the 8 years of these 2 terms, many other crucial areas engaged the attention they deserved due to their importance for the socio-economic development of Africa. Whether it is our vision on mining issues, the comprehensive agriculture program and the blue economy, the development of infrastructure and energy, climate change with adaptation and climate resilience of the continent, regional integration through the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the effective operationalization of the Peace Fund, which has exceeded the set target of $400 million, the treatment of humanitarian crisis of which Africa is the epicenter, with the establishment of the African Humanitarian Agency, the strengthening of the visibility of the African Union through our partnership with the United Nations, all have been at the center of our collective endeavor. I would like to seize this opportunity to pay special tribute to a major architect of this partnership. I'm here referring to Antonio Guterres, a great friend of Africa. Thank you, Antonio. The membership of the African Union, the G20 and the BRICS, of which several African countries are members, have crowned this visibility. On all these issues, the specialized structure of the African Union and the member states have carried out in-depth discussions and outlined clear prospects for some and given concrete form to many others. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a few months ago I sent to Your Excellencies a letter relating to some urgent issues at the heart of the future of our Union and its capacity to attain as best as possible our objectives. I'm here thinking first of the Peace and Security Council, which I mentioned earlier on, and its role should be carried out on the basis of texts that govern its function, its operation, from which it draws the strength and legitimacy to design, supervise the pressing issues of our collective security and impose, if necessary, the required sanctions. It is very regrettable that its decisions are sometimes contrary to our own principles, and when they are not, often remain dead letters. The decision of this central continental organ cannot be considered in a casual manner, nor by bias the concept and practice of these regional economic communities in the name of the hackneyed principle of subsidiarity interpreted in a self-interest and partisan manner. The mentioning of the PSC brings forth the issue of unconstitutional changes of government. In this regard, I mention in the said letter that we have only 2 options henceforth: either abandon the principles that currently govern this issue or apply them seriously. Notwithstanding the fact that we can revise them, adapt them to the new realities, I think for our own credibility, we should continue to establish these principles like a litany while trampling on them and accepting their flagrant and constant violation. There is nothing that eats more into our credibility than such an attitude, which has recently led to a real distrust in the rules and principles and weakened integration in part of the continent. I'm here mentioning the persistent and paralyzing slump of our unbearable division in terms of representation in relation to our so-called strategic partnerships. I drew attention, and I draw again attention here, to choose one of the two options that are presented to us and which I presented in clear terms in my letter. I had also mentioned the recurring issue of the financing of our organization, which paradoxically contrasts with the continuing trends of multiplication of organs without any concern for how to finance them. An independent organization and guardian of our freedom and sovereignty cannot be built with the finances and resources by others. I had also raised the depriving reduction of the initiatives of the chairperson of the African Union Commission and called for its harmonization with the legal and customary obligations that are now imposed on him. In short, the sense of my correspondence is very simple and maybe brutal. It is the question of placing our organization worthily or not before a terrible combination of factors of complexity. These are all the problems that you are facing today that I wanted to raise very modestly in my letter. Are we finally going to open our eyes to the fate of our organization, or are we continue to let it lament and moan? Excellency, Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a commonplace truth today to affirm that the concepts and legal instruments serving as a framework of analyzing the dynamics of contemporary international politics are outdated. They have lost their both the structuring and explanatory virtue of current global phenomena. Such an observation explains why the debates today focus on the modalities for the advent of a new global economic and political governance. Africa cannot remain silent and inactivities. It must imperatively throw itself into the battle to carve out its own place in the configuration correctly being designed. It is not easy. It will require ingenuity, creativity, method, and courage. More generally, this will require real redemption for an awakening of the consciousness and conscience of the soul of Pan-Africanism, that of our awareness of our Africanity, that of the pride of our Africanity, that of the commitment to our Africanity, that of the rejection of our depersonalization and our nihilistic servility of our identity and our being. This is what African youth are calling for us to do. They are the majority in all our states and are becoming increasingly demanding. Their voices are resonating louder and louder thanks to the new forms of communication that amplify all expressions. African youth are constantly challenging us and putting us on trial for being out of step with their aspirations, which are that of an Africa that is open to itself, united, sovereign in its policies and choices, standing and interdependent. This solidarity has always been our lifeline in the fight against colonialism and apartheid and the completion of our independence. We have just paid tribute to the memory of a great combatant, Sam Nujoma. This should bring something and click something in our minds. Our solidarity should galvanize our consciences, our wills and our intelligence to lead us to a more promising common destiny. There are no other new path for our future than to listen and to give substance to the aspirations of our youth, our fellow citizens and our diaspora. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am leaving my office definitively in a few days. I confess that I feel overwhelmed by a sweet feeling of freedom that allows me to say a few words from the bottom of my heart. The first is a word of deep gratitude to your Excellencies for the trust that you have placed in me by electing me for 2 successive terms as the chairperson of the African Union Commission. You must rest assured that I have measured and I continue to measure all the dimensions of this trust and the heavy weight of subsequent gratitude and acknowledgement. The second word concerns the other one and me. In the other one, I'm thinking of our partners, especially those who have offered a sincere friendship and mutually beneficial cooperation. I want to thank them all and express our gratitude. I am also thinking of you present here, those who have left us also for different reasons. You have realized good and great things, and above all, as far as possible, respected a certain ethic and a line of conduct that we have believed to be consistent with our principles. Please accept my full gratitude. The members of the African Union Commission are the men and women that have worked very often in the shadows with diligence, dedication, discipline, and talent. I would like to pay tribute to them, the tribute that they deserve. The third word relates to my own limitations. I wanted so much to do quickly and better during the 2 terms that you entrusted to me. I know that I have not done everything. Perhaps I underestimated the burden of the task and the weight of the constraints. I know that I may have made mistakes. I should not say perhaps, but I should say certainly I've made mistakes. Maybe here and there I have weakened and made mistakes and missed opportunities to do better. I would like to apologize and ask forgiveness if my shortcomings have caused any individual or collective harm. The fourth word relates to my feelings at the moment. I am happy to regain my freedom, but I know that we'll also have the nostalgia of the places, the women and men whom I have known, for the Ethiopian people, with their age-old civilization. To you, my brother, dear brother Abiy Ahmed, Amasaganalo. Maybe we'll have time to write the history of all this tangle of feelings and sensations. Finally, my fifth word is that of my oath to continue to think of Africa, to serve Africa, to dream for its youth for whom we have not done enough and for whom we must do a lot, because after all, it is they who count today and more so tomorrow. A final word to you, Mr. President, Chairperson, and Mr. President, dear brother Sheikh Al-Ghazwani, to tell you how much I appreciated your close relation throughout your mandate. You have been a master of wisdom, civic-mindedness, and loftiness, inspiring in all respects. To you, Mr. President, and dear brother João Lourenço, and I would like to stress that the quiet strength that you symbolize reassures me about a chairmanship of seriousness and substance. May you both in particular, and all of us, have an active thought for the great prisoner of the Sahel, President Mohamed Bazoum, whose interminable detention is not justified. He must be released unconditionally. I wish full success to our summit. I wish full success to our next leadership. I thank you.
Hello and welcome to this special program on the Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation. Ethiopia is preparing to host the 38th Africa Union Summit where leaders from across the continent gather to discuss Africa's future. As those leaders convene in Addis Ababa, the question how Africa can achieve through political and economic unity remains pressing more than ever before. Dr. Seifet Adele, a scholar and an advocate for Africa unity, has proposed a new model of governance that is rooted in indigenous African knowledge systems. Today, we sit down with him to explore his ideas and their relevance to the Africa Union Summit here in Addis Ababa. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us to this interview.
Thank you, Dems, for having me.
The idea of Pan-Africanism and Africa unity has been an agenda for a long time. How do you see the progress of this notion so far?
Let me take you back a bit. You know, before Pan-Africanism, there were Pan-Europeanism and Pan-Arabism throughout the world. You know, people, they might think Pan-Africanism is a unique for Africans, but it has been there in a number of continents. But Pan-Europeanism, it achieved European Union. And overall objective of Pan-Africanism, it should be to create, and just to give, a good a living standard for Africans. That's the way I take it. But Pan-Africanism came, through different historical and intellectual process. It was a complex journey for the last, I can say, a century during the colonial era and post-colonial Africa.
Well, in the very outset of this discussion, we said you have introduced a new model based on indigenous African knowledge systems. What makes it indigenous?
Look, when we developed this indigenous model, we went back all the way to pre-colonial Africa and somehow also the colonial era and some practices also in post-colonial Africa. So when you look at the pre-colonial Africa, it was pretty much, governed by local people with the horizontal, structure. And in some African countries also, regions, there were vertical structures. So we took a number of local knowledge. For example, in Ethiopia, we do have a different kind of models, which we know, one of which is Dabo. Dabo is working together for a collective good. And Mojo Jamaat, Mojo Oda is the first strata, which is practiced in Kenya, Tanzania, and also the southern part of Ethiopia. So these are the models which we were looking. And on the third level, or the supranational level, we took Umojo Jama, that is, which can create, a familyhood of different countries. So these are the three models which we took from indigenous model of the pre-colonial and colonial Africa. Yeah, we Africans, we tried, different models, especially which is driven by Eurocentric models. And unless we change, our roots, we can't bring, change which we all aspire to be united as a country, and just to give, a best, living standard for our citizens. So my message to African leaders is we have to re-engineer the current institutional framework in order to achieve, the aspiration of the African people. The aspiration is, to be considered as a world citizen and equal citizen with the rest of the world.
Doctor, how do you describe the contribution of the existing Africa's regional blocs in terms of fostering Africa's integration?
When you talk about the current regional integration, we're talking about the Lagos Plan of Action and the Abuja Treaty. So the Abuja Treaty, as you remember, it divided the continent into 5 places, including the diaspora, the 6th region. So the 5 regions are, as you know, it's West Africa, North Africa, East Africa, Central and Southern Africa. But this is a very bulky approach. It couldn't able to consider, the common consanguinity of the people and similar economical models of certain countries, and it couldn't consider, the diversity of the people in this context. So let me give you a practical example. If you look at ECOWAS, it comprises like 15 countries, but some of which are in the geographical contexts. They are in Central Africa, and some of even the time zone are different within the member countries. So also there are contestation within the Western Africans, who is big economy, who has a strong political and democratic governance and so on. So we have to look, re-engineer this model. Similarly, I can give you SADC, Southern African Development Community, which comprise similar number like 15 African countries. But it comes all the way to DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. But if you look at the geographical space of DRC, that's which constitutes with the Central Africa. But for information, DRC also a member of EAC. That is create a number of confusion and multi-membership and overlapping membership throughout this exercise. So we have to look, what are the challenges? Not only, being a multiple, membership. There are a number of challenges in terms of, it can be security, it can be achieving, a proper governance system, it can be achieving, economic interaction and trading among member countries. So these are the challenge which, pushed me just to reconstruct and just to decolonize the idea of Eurocentric idea which was imposed for a long time.
So apart from the ramifications related to regional blocks within Africa, what general and specific challenges do you mention as a challenge for Africa unification?
Proximity is one. I think this is a wonderful question. One of the challenge of this, the current REX is it's a proximity. Look, let me give you one example. Madagascar is far from East Africa, but even in this current contestation of African Union chairmanship, I can give you a simple example. These three gentlemen, they came from different REX, but they are galvanized by East African bloc. Let me give you, Madagascar is a member of SADC. So the candidate came from Southern Africa. But the original blockage, mapping of Abuja Treaty, Madagascar is under East Africa. Let me give you the second one, the Kenyan representative Odinga. He is a member of EAC, East African Community, but he is representing East Africa. Of course, Kenya is in East Africa. And the third one is from Djibouti. He represents IGAD, a different REX all the way. But he represents through the Abuja Treaty, the Eastern Bloc. So the contradictions are many. I can tell you a number of contradictions in this regard. Also, the confusion between SADC and COMESA. COMESA, as you know, it's started just to facilitate, the SADC, EAC, and IGAD. It developed from PTA, preferential trade areas. And now it goes all the way to Egypt. But COMESA, naturally, it was established to organize, trading facility among East African and Southern Africa. So the confusions in this, what they call it, the current REX are multiple. Let me give you another example. We do have more than 22 REX which are recognized and unrecognized. The recognized REX are 8 currently, which we have. There are unrecognized 11 regional economic communities. And let me give you a specific example for this, which will give you a context. For example, SACWA, Southern Africa Customs Union, which comprise South Africa, Lesotho, Swaziland, Namibia, and Botswana. This is, for my model, I consider it as a Southern Africa. But SACU is not considered or recognized by the African Union. The African Union recognized Sen Assad, which comprised like almost 19 countries. But this regs, it doesn't exist for the last almost 10 years. Even it doesn't have office because it was established by the former president of Libya, Mohammed Gaddafi. That was his initiative. So you can see a failure of AU even to examine and to audit its own regional economic communities. I think let me add you one more point. There is no direct relationship between regional economic communities and African Union. That's a very symbolic. They are attached with memorandum of understanding. It doesn't have any hierarchy to implement whatever resolution made by the African Union. So this is the biggest challenge to come up or to implement, whatever, let's say, silencing the gun, or AFCTA, or freedom of movement, or free visa for Africans, one passport. You can name a number of climate change. So there are several challenges in this regard. So we have to come up with a solid foundation. One regional, one double, one country should be a member of one sub-regional blocks. Otherwise, it will complicate the entire system. That's why I came up with a theory just to divide Africa into 12 different blocks based on common consanguinity, based on historical relevance, psychological makeup, philosophical aspiration, political and economic relevance in so many ways, and socio-cultural context. These are the six, what I call it, the 6 pillars: historical, psychological, philosophical, political, economic, and socio-cultural variables. These are the way how we can constitute a regional economic community. Yeah.
Many African countries have been struggling between national sovereignty and collective development. So how your model can address in terms of alleviating this kind of problem?
You touched the heart of the whole model. The very challenge, actually we miss that point, the very challenge of Africa is a confusion between national sovereignty and collective sovereignty. So that started when our forefathers, when they established the organization of African unity. They brought directly Eurocentric model of Westphalian philosophy. It created a big confusion. National, all member states, they are more sovereign or very elastic sovereignty, which nobody can touch it or claim it, that level of sovereignty. So this sovereignty, it should be changed to the collective sovereignty. In other words, they have to give their sovereignty to the supranational entity. That is the way how we can resolve the entire African debates.
Peace and stability have been a top agenda in every Africa Union summit. So how your new model can contribute in terms of bringing lasting peace and stability in Africa?
Yeah, that's the very important question. One of the challenges, even just to develop, economic model, you have to be peace and stability and tranquility among member countries. So you have to divide into 3 levels. One is at national level, what we call it is Mojo order. The second one is at double level, the security apparatus. And the third one is at the supranational level. So, as you know, the African Union, they came up with a security architecture. But the challenge is the implementation part. So, unless we have, a security architecture which works for to stabilize local politics, to stabilize sub-regional politics and supranational entity, we can't go anywhere far in bringing, peace and stability in the continent. So once we have this, the what do you call it, the different structure of security apparatus, we can resolve, the security issue, which was, an obstacle for a long time in our lifetime. I think for the last 60 or 70 years, especially in post-colonial Africa. So the very issue is to establish sub-regional security apparatus which can control and manage the security and the movement of people to make it in a very peaceful way. That is how we can maintain our peace. Peace is very important just to do, our economic development, also political transformation in the continent. That's the central point for our development.
Of course, Africa has already set Agenda 2063 that has Africa unification as a main agenda. Do you think Africa can achieve integration by the end of 2063?
That's a $1 million question. Let me take you back with regarding the silencings again. When we adopt the African agenda of 2023, we projected by 2020 silencing the gun just to be implemented. But it's a far-fetched or a pipe of dream, such kind of, program. We couldn't even achieve, any sort of peace. As you know, Sudan is in a challenge, Somalia, even our country, Ethiopia, even after 2020. The Sahel region, DRC Congo is currently they are in problem. So that means Agenda 2026, it couldn't able to achieve its goal. Most probably, the one which I'm telling you, it's the implementation mechanism. There was no a clear roadmap how to silence, the gun. So this model, the one which I'm talking about, it should be a pragmatic move, whatever plan you have to implement throughout the continent, whether you call it peace or development or economic advancement or intra-Africa trade. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Yeah.
So, what recommendations, Doctor, do you recommend to Africa leaders who hold their discussions here in Addis Ababa in terms of uniting Africa? What concrete steps they have to follow now?
My message is very clear. One of the things is we have to sit different, scholars, the civil society, political parties, the concerned citizens to come up with a solid foundation of theory, which can give us, a mandate to reconstruct, the Africa we want. That is the way it should be. And it should be the proposal, it should be also people-centric. We have to move from a state-led to people-led movement. That is when we can achieve our goal. And I always say, rather than looking United States of Africa, I'm looking to establish United People of Africa. The people should move forward to bring, the African unification for the sake of their livelihood, for their well-being. That's the way we have to move. So African leaders, in one way or another, they have to listen to their people, and we have to give, a mandate properly at national level, sub-regional level, and continental level. So the people can be heard, and in the process, I think we can bring, the African unification, which we all aspire for a long time. Yeah.
You have, of course, contributed a study that introduces new model for Africa's unification. So how you make it practical and get noticed by policymakers? What efforts have you exerted so far in terms of doing so?
No, this is a wonderful question. Look, even the current African Union Commission, it doesn't have a big mandate to implement such kind of big ideas. So member states, they have to take responsibility. It can be South Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya, Egypt, Senegal, Nigeria. One of these countries, they have to endorse and they have to table it to the African leaders to restructure and to re-engineer the current model, and which can be worked for all of us. That is the way we have to go with the story. But as intermediate level, we can also work with the current, the upcoming chairperson who will take the chairmanship in the coming weeks. That's also another way of implementing the idea.
Dr. Saifat Adela, thank you very much for your thought-provoking and enlightening explanations.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Dear viewers, thank you very much for joining us in this enlightening discussion. This is Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation, the voice of Pan-Africanism, and I am your host, Demis Makwel. See you next time with another edition.
Please be seated. I was in the house preparing, and I heard the Holy Ghost speaking to me, and I kept hearing in my spirit. And he said, I will bless the Lord at all times. At all times. And he kept echoing, at all times. At all times. Then I stopped and I said to myself, you know what? You know what? God is saying something, because we don't bless him at all times. We bless him sometimes, every now and then, but not all the time, including